Wanasema haba na haba timamu, ongeza 5 ni 7 baada ya mwaka kutimu, unaojaza mkoba unakuwa mtu maashumu kwa yako nyingi ya kiba, manake daima haba na haba ujaza kibaba. Ndiposa wanahabari wetu wa kusemu tofauti kuhakikisha kwamba wanakupa taarifa sahihi, taarifa ambazo zinakidhi monjo wako. Karibu Kumekucha Kulichele, nafahamika kama Rashid Abdalla. Na sasa hivi ni kwamba kuna mengi ambayo tumeweza kuiangazia, lakini kwanza kabisa ni kupeleka moja kwa moja katika majengo ya bunge ambapo Waziri Kiunjuri amefika katika kamati ya bunge ili kuweza kuangalia swala zima la kitendawili kinachozunguka swala zima la mahindi, na ukiweza kuangalia ni kwamba ni kikao ambacho kinaendelea, na ningekupeleka moja kwa moja kuweza kujua kinachoendelea ndani ya majengo ya bunge.
Okay. Since we cannot see your faces, we can only say thank you and welcome. Okay. Thank you. So we'll start, Waziri. You know the system. You have been with us in this house, so you know exactly why we are doing the inquiries that we are doing. And we'll go straight to the answer. Yeah. We will go straight to the questions that we raised. We raised a number of questions with you. We want to know the current status of payment made to farmers for the 2017-2018 maize crop. We want to know the subsidized fertilizer purchase and distribution model also that is being used. And when you touch on the payments made to the farmers, you may wish to let us know whether you have distinguished who are farmers and who are not farmers in the payment schedules that you made. Number 3, we want to know the extent to which the ministry has aligned its parastatals to the devolved system of government, with a special emphasis on the roles of NCPB and the roles of AFC. We are asking these questions because we want to also get to know policy interventions that you as a ministry would be proposing to us as we clear this. During our trip, Waziri, we went to Nyasiongo in Nyamira County, and we came across beans full in a store, and we are told the beans are 10 years old, expired, and we wanted to know about the ownership and the status of those beans, and whether anybody actually knows in the ministry that they exist. Because the farmers told us to open the store, and when we opened the store, they showed us the beans, and they said expiry dates are on and they are expired, and we are wondering why they are still in that store. Maize received by NCPB, we would like to know the maize that was received for the year 2017-2018 season, and the status of payment to suppliers. Of course, that repeats the question that we had raised earlier, but we are saying what was received from where, because NCPB must know who delivered to them. Were they really this outcry from farmers? Is it true that none actually came from farmers and everything else came from elsewhere? And one thing that has been coming and disappearing, but was missed in that question, was the role of millers. What's the role of millers in importation, and how much actually was imported by millers, and where did they sell? The other question that was missed out, so that you can touch that one at the end of these two before we go to supplementaries, is the leasing of stores by National Cereals and Produce Board. The stores that we visited, not all of them are occupied by maize that belongs to SFR, as we were made to believe initially. We are told that some of the maize in the stores belong to individual farmers, some of them belong to traders, some of it belongs to millers, and specifically the large millers, and the small millers are lacking maize to mill for some reason that is not clear to us, even though the crop is there. We also discovered that quite a bit of the grain that is in the stores has gone yellow. We saw the brown maize. Some of it is browning, some of it is yellowing. We want to inform you that we asked KEBS to go and test, and we have the results. But I'm sure you also have the results because the NCPB falls under your ministry. So we would like you also to make a comment on what is the status of the grains that are now currently in the stores. Are they really good for human consumption, or they are all condemned? So Waziri, you can take us one by one, and if there's any supplementary question, members can ask after each item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and once again we apologize. We tried to reach you in the morning to seek your indulgence, but you could not get through. In fact, at one particular time, my secretary got to
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we have accepted you.
Okay, I appreciate. I will go straight away to the answers. The current status of the payments made to farmers for the 2017-18 maize crops. During 2017-18 financial year, the government had targeted to purchase 2 million of 90 kg bags of maize at a total budget of 6 billion, which was available. The National Cereals and Produce Board started receiving maize from farmers on the 16th of October 2017 until 18th of April 2018, where the purchase was discontinued due to reported malpractice in the exercise where traders posing as farmers were supplying maize to National Cereals and Produce Board. Despite the targeted quantities of 2 million bags, there was surplus production with farmers, which the government decided to absorb for the SFR. By the time of discontinuation in April 2018, the National Cereals and Produce Board had procured a total of 6,523,872 50 kg bags, which translates to 3,626,773 90 kg bags, worth 11,630 million from 12,297 farmers. A total of Kenya shillings 8 billion had been paid to the suppliers by the time the suspension, leaving a balance of 3.575 billion. A total of 3,797 farmers were fully paid by the time of suspension. Any further payment was stopped as recommended by EACC in July 2018, awaiting the investigation on the malpractice and authentication reports of the genuine farmers from traders by a multi-agency team that was formed. Delayed payments were also attributed to lack of funds. After the authentication report by the multi-agency team and investigation by EACC, Kenya shillings 1.4 billion was released by the National Treasury to settle part of the farmers' debts. However, the Strategic Food Reserve Oversight Board tenure had expired in August 2018 and could not authorize the payments. The new board was gazetted on the 27th of September 2018 and convened in early October to authorize the payment of Kenya shillings 1.5 billion, which we started paying on the 5th of October. The payment to farmers is ongoing. We expected by the close of yesterday they would have paid all the farmers, and we believe that happened, or it will happen. National Cereals and Produce Board purchased 6.52 million of 50 bags of maize in 2017-2018, worth 11.63 billion from farmers. So far, Kenya shillings 9.41 billion has already been paid, leaving a balance of Kenya shillings 1.2 billion, 180 million, broken down as follows. Kenya shillings 1.4 billion for 152 claims under investigations. Kenya shillings 429 million for 74 farmers whose deliveries do not match the authorized quantities by the vetting committee. Let me explain. These farmers, you get, when we went vetting, a farmer owns, for example, owns 10 acres of land. If you look at the capacity, the maximum they can be able to produce in an acre, and I'm happy that most of you come from those regions, you can do 25 bags. So you expect if you have 10 acres, a farmer should only be able to give you 250 bags. But you realize the same farmer supplied 1,800 bags. Others supplied over 2,000 bags. The question is, where did you get the extra bags of maize? So those are the questions surrounding these farmers. As you realize, we have a balance of 429 million. If you divide 429 billion by 74, you realize that these farmers are supposed to be paid each 1,800 bags. And this amount is the outstanding balance. They had been paid before. Some other amounts, this is balance. Then we have another 217 million for 44 farmers who collected their verification forms but did not return them to their respective depots. The ministry is waiting for further allocation of funds from the National Treasury to clear the farmers' debts. Of the farmers that we have no question, that's the additional information I'm giving, the farmers whom we are not questioning, they have passed verification. We now have a balance of 129 million. That's the amount we should get from Treasury to ensure that those farmers that we have no case against are fully settled. And we have written to Treasury so that they can release the money.
Okay.
And also further information on that is that once again, we have forwarded information to EACC and DCI because again, of the 152 and the 74, we need their clearance. We already have their letter that stopped us from paying until they conclude their investigations. And therefore, we have written to them once again that they can be able to give us the clear picture. Whom should we pay? Whom should we not pay? Who are the persons of interest? So that we can settle this matter once and for all. Can I continue too? Or?
Thank you. You want us to go through everything?
Yeah. Finish everything.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And two,
Okay.
subsidized fertilizer, purchase and distribution model. Introduction, fertilizer price stabilization plan started in 2008 as a part of a budget declaration following the periods that fertilizer prices escalated worldwide beyond the farmers' reach. The plan was to allow the government procure about 25% to 30% of the country's conventional fertilizer requirements and selling to farmers at subsidized prices. Fertilizer subsidy strategic objectives was one, to stabilize prices of fertilizer, to make it accessible and affordable by most small-scale farmers in the country, reduce cost of production and agricultural commodities, increase productivity of major crops in the country. To increase productivity of major crops in the country, 4, provide capacity and mechanisms towards implementation of the 3-tier fertilizer cost reduction strategy. Support uptake of fertilizer used by poor and vulnerable smallholder farmers in the country. Fertilizer procurement processes. The quantities of fertilizer procured are based on the budgetary allocation, and the procedure is as follows. Before the procurement process commences, the ministry writes to the counties and requests them to provide their fertilizer requirements. The requirements are then compiled and nationalized according to available funds. The procurement then commences, and this has to comply with the recommendation that subsidy fertilizer procured annually should amount to 25 to 30% of the national requirement of about 650,000 metric tons, which means that we should procure about 160 metric tons. As a result, the private sector fertilizer dealers remain vibrant and in business. The procurement is done twice in a planting season, as shown below. Short lanes are 30%, long lanes 70%. Tenders for the short lanes are done in August and procurement process concluded in October, where those of long lanes are done in October and procurement process completed in December of each year. Due to long procurement processes, the ministry resorted to a 2-year contract framework. This current framework will expire in January 2019. We currently have 8-year contract frameworks for supply of subsidy fertilizer, which will expire in January 2019. The procurement quantities, this is done by a company called ETG, was given these quantities. Do I go through them or you okay?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
The above fertilizer are from import markets. The Agbo procured fertilizer, the other 7 farms are Agbo farms owned by women, youth, and persons living with disabilities, contracted to supply the following local brand as and when required. Those are the quantities. It's okay?
Yes.
Access to fertilizer by small-scale farmers. All fitted and registered farmers are eligible to access the subsidy fertilizer. The vetting and registration processes involves the vetting committee constituted by county commissioners and comprising of a chief county ward agriculture officer, women leader appointed by the people, and a church leader at the ward level, which visits the farm and access the acreage prepared for planting and recommended quantity of fertilizer. Then a form is filled and signed for the farmer to take to the nearest National Cereals and Produce Board depot to collect recommended fertilizer after making payments. You can see an attached sample of the form for fertilizer requisition. A small-scale farmer can access about 40 to 50 bags of fertilizer. Access to subsidy fertilizer by large-scale farmers. Large-scale farmers requiring more than 40, that is 50 kg bags, are fitted by the local, the county staff, and recommendation letter signed by the CEC Agriculture and is sent to the ministry headquarters for approval. The recommendation is done based on the fertilizer given to the county to release the fertilizer to the large-scale farmers after making the necessary payments. Fertilizer distribution. Fertilizer distribution to counties is mainly through the elaborate National Cereals and Produce Board depot network of 110 depots. The same farmers and also some farmers' cooperative societies can access it. In areas where depots are far away from farmers, National Cereals and Produce Board opens satellite selling depots at strategic points. Farmers' allocation to various, fertilizer allocation to various counties is based on intensity of agricultural activities, that is, target crop coverage, acreage, county uptake trades, and seasonality at the time of distribution, that is for the long and short rains. Fertilizer distribution guidelines to ensure that the right farmers receive the subsidized fertilizer. The ministry, together with the National Cereals and Produce Board, developed guidelines for insurance of fertilizer. That is Appendix 2. It's attached. Only farmers in the national database, that is vetted and registered farmers, can access the fertilizer. Each county is allocated fertilizer according to the areas cultivated for crop production. Again, you have that list attached. The extent to which the ministry has aligned its parastatals to devolved system of government with a specific emphasis on the National Cereals and Produce Board and AFC. National Cereals and Produce Board is present in all counties other than the Tharaka-Nithi County, which is yet to get a space for locating National Cereals and Produce Board store. The county government, together with the National Cereals and Produce Board, decide on the farm input delivery methods, especially on fertilizer. Through National Cereals and Produce Board, counties have market for some of their produce, such as rice, beans, and sorghum. Most of the counties have access to National Cereals and Produce Board facilities, especially storage, weighing, and drying facilities. This relationship, however, is on need basis. It is working but need to be well structured. Most counties have developed an arrangement with National Cereals and Produce Board on supply of fertilizer and seeds. And this paragraph, I also needed more clarification from my officers on this collaboration. As you mentioned earlier, it is also, I have the information of most of these cereal facilities, depots, being leased out to traders. And therefore, I also have requested to get a clear answer onto this. During the purchase of the strategic food reserve maize, the county government is tasked with the responsibility of vetting of the farmers with support from the ministry. Some of the National Cereals and Produce Board stores have been made available for storage of strategic food reserve for the counties and special program. These include maize, beans, and hay. National Cereals and Produce Board also has joint activities with counties on environmental conservation, talent development, community assistance, and wellness programs of social corporate responsibility. The government is in the process of transforming National Cereals and Produce Board as advised following the consultancy reports of Ernst & Young. The major recommendations were on separating the commercial and social functions of National Cereals and Produce Board and establishment of a commodity exchange market to enhance price discovery, creating a fair price where no one player can influence the price. The Ministry of Trade is developing a framework of commodity exchange. In addition, the consultancy report recommended decentralization of responsibilities and authority to regions and divisions to streamline services to farmers at the lower level. On AFC, following Executive Order Number 1 of June 2018, AFC is now in the National Treasury and Ministry of Planning. Ownership and status of the bean seed stock stored at the National Cereals and Produce Board, Nyansiongo, Nyamira County. There are some 27,028 2 kg packets in Nyasiongo, which according to KEFI's report are expired, but no expiry date is indicated on the package. The seeds were received in 2012 from the Ministry of Agriculture and supplied to National Cereals and Produce Board to be sold on agency basis to farmers at a subsidized price. Farmers failed to purchase all the seeds, hence the balance that remained in the stores. The question I was asking my officers, having realized that the stocks are not moving, why did you distribute to other parts of the country, to other needy farmers, and they were subsidized? Yeah. The report I have is that we bought this from Kenya Seed. And the reason why we did so is that there was an outbreak, a disease outbreak that was affecting maize in the region then, and therefore need to request farmers to diversify to other crops. And therefore, the beans were taken there for them to take and plant instead of maize. That's the explanation given so far. And therefore, this stock should be condemned. The extent to which the ministry relies on research and soil testing in the purchase and distribution of subsidy fertilizer. Agriculture being the default function, the ministry and CARL is working in collaboration with the county government on soil testing and research. The need to provide accurate information on fertilizer requirements for the different region crops of the county prompted a national soil testing exercise in 2013-14. I've noted the content of this answer, and I also informed my officers that this is not really answering the question you wanted, because the question is very clear. The extent to which the ministry relies on research and soil testing in the purchase of and distribution of fertilizer. What we are doing is that now we are working closely, collaboration with the county government. They are the ones who receive this fertilizer. And what we are doing is to ask them from the regions they come from to tell us the requirements of the fertilizer and for what purpose. If it is for the maize, they are advising us on which fertilizer you should give to them. For example, this season, Transoya requested not to be given DAP, and they used other fertilizers, bread. And you can see as a result, there was increase in production by 25% because they used the right fertilizer and they did liming the right time. And therefore, we are doing the same. If it is coffee farmers, we are asking them to provide us with the information. Lastly, we are in the process of doing farmer registration, and in this platform, we want to be able to be monitoring every 2 years the soil condition. Because if you realize the problem that is facing the country is that for a long time, we have not been testing the soils. And therefore, farmers are planting without information of the required varieties of fertilizer and also soil management. And this is leading to a lot of acidity in the soils. And therefore, in this collaboration, we have taken it upon us to collaborate with the county government because this is a devolved function. but the government is really supporting them. I think that should take care of that answer. The maize received by National Cereals and Produce Board for the 2017-18 season, and the status of payment to the suppliers. A total of 3,626,973 of 90 kg bags worth 11,630 million was procured during the season from 12,287 suppliers, that is farmers, and a total of Kenya shillings 9.4 billion has been paid, leaving a balance of 2.2 billion, broken down as follows: 1.4 billion for 152 claims under investigations, 429 million for 74 farmers whose deliveries do not match the authorized quantities by the vetting committee, and 217 million for farmers who collected their verification forms but did not return them to their respective depots. I think I've answered. Is there anything that I've not answered?
Thank you, Waziri. I think maybe supplementary questions from members will bring in other issues. So let's go back. I think we start from page 1, so that we deal with the 9 pages, and any question and more supplementary that members have can come from there. Let's go to item 1. Item 1, if there is a member that has a question on item 1, Senator Mbito.
Chair, I'd like to find out from the Cabinet Secretary on item 1, where the government targeted 2 million bags of maize. How did you arrive at that figure of 2 million bags? Was there a meeting? What kind of who did the quantification? Was there are there documents that show that yes, we sat down and agreed that this is the amount of maize that may be out there ready for purchase? Because I actually have information to the contract that the actual target was 4 million bags. So are we very sure about this figure of 2 million bags?
Yeah, and maybe as you're answering that, at the point when importation was opened, what was the target for importation? And we have seen your Gazette notice, and I think we raised this question yesterday, that during the same gazettement, there were 2 gazettes that came out. One was for milk importation, and the one that came from milk importation had specific amount and period when the importation was allowed. But then below that was the gazette for maize, and in the gazette for maize it was open. There was no limitation as far as amounts are concerned. And maybe what we are dealing with now is a creation from the ministry through the gazette itself, because there was no limitation, so it was open to everybody to import whatever, and the period was given in that one, although we now realize that the period was also extended. So the Ministry of Agriculture, we are informed, is the one that requests for the gazette. You request for importation, so you requested for an open-ended one with a period that was that had a deadline in October, but then in October it was extended. So maybe even also, as you are touching that, why was it necessary? Because in other documents we are told that NCPB was asked to open the stores for farmers on 17th of October, 16th of October. And as they were opening the stores, the extension, 15 days later, the extension was requested. So what were the shortfalls at that time that necessitated an extension for importation? And did we know the amount that was in the stores? Because it was clear to us that 2016 was a low period. We didn't have much crop, so it was necessary to import. But 2017 was pamba harvest. By 17, when the stores were open, Trans Nzoia was already harvesting, Bungoma was already harvesting. That's why we raised the question, because the farmers that we met said they only delivered for 2 weeks and they were stopped. By the time they were stopped, the crops were in their stores. That crop is still there up to now.
Before
Yeah.
I need clarity on the Gazette notices. The first Gazette notice was issued on 13th April 2017, giving an open-ended quantum to be imported on or before 31st July. According to the Treasury, this was on the request by your ministry. Before the 31st July, on the 4th July, your ministry asked for a variation of that Gazette notice and extended the period to 30th September. Before 30th September, on 27th July, your ministry again asked for another variation, extending the period to 15th October. Why were these variations requested for? And because of those variations, a huge quantum of maize was brought into the country. From Mexico alone, you allowed to come in 1.4 million bags of maize, metric tons of maize, 1.4 million from Mexico. From South Africa, you allowed to come in 248,956 tons of maize, and many others. And in the process, the importers walked away with a profit of over 16 billion from the government. My last question on that, because there are many other questions I'll ask later, is when these importers, largely big maize millers, brought in this maize from Mexico and elsewhere, they delivered it directly to cereals boards and they were paid, making the astronomical profit of over 16 billion. If cereals boards had money to pay the millers who imported the maize and cost the country 16 point something billion, why didn't they themselves import the maize and save the country the over 16 billion? I'll ask other questions later.
I have one question, Chair.
Okay.